After I did my masters from the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. After that, during that I worked in Apple on the product which became the iPhone. So that was that is how we started. After that, for the most part, I was at Amazon, where we worked on the merchant platform. So this allows merchants from all over the world to sell on Amazon, to sell to customers. Merchant platform was smaller at that time, but over a period of time it's grown to occupy a larger and larger percentage of Amazon sales, where 30 to 40% of Amazon sales now come through merchants. In India, 100% of Amazon sales come through the merchant platform. After Amazon, I decided to do something on my own, which is when I founded Comparify.com along with a few friends. So we all came back from the US and then started this. So Amazon has a culture where people are encouraged to contribute as many ideas as possible on their own. They don't need to cut out the bureaucracy and try to get solve problems on their own and without intervention as such. So they had a hackathon where you could just come up with ideas, and if it's green lighted, you could go ahead and develop it. One of the main problems that at least we had at that point of time, and this is at least 8 years ago, was trying to get more merchants to list as quickly as possible on Amazon, right? It took a lot of time to get their entire inventory on sale on Amazon. So the problem there was that we needed a lot of information in order to create a product for sale on Amazon, and I just started hacking by myself on maybe a solution for it involving barcode scanners, where you could just scan the product. Amazon would already have the information, so you could get to listing the product as quick as possible.
So this you did independently. It was not a project given by your company.
So we'll go on that. So over 2 days, you just make a rough prototype. It doesn't have to work very well, but you just give let's say a kernel of what it might look like in the future. When I showed this to the management at Amazon, my managers and his managers and the vice presidents, they absolutely loved it. So they green lighted it and dropped whatever I was doing at that point of time. And then 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and some other engineer started working with me on that project, and then we launched that project. And now that project is now global across. If you go to sell on Amazon, it's called a listing loader feed, and that's the way you create products for sale on Amazon. The idea, there are two issues with trying to get a job in a Silicon Valley firm. One is that since it's an extremely high-paying job, you're competing against not just the best. You're competing against the best from around the world, because all of them from different countries have now congregated in the valley. So you're competing against a very extremely talented international talent pool. What ends up happening is that the set of questions are actually very well known, but the skill of an interviewer is to try to figure out how a person reacts to a problem, a very difficult problem, on the fly and solve new problems, and they're trying to gauge your ability to handle problems you've never seen before. So we give them like coding problems, or we give them mathematical problems, because these are difficult. But then we also keep changing the problem a little bit and see how a person is able to handle new constraints and able to solve these problems with which have changed, which have just slightly changed but may have changed everything, and just to see if he can think on his feet. So they completely change in 2-3 years from now. So we want to see a person how adaptable they are, that like even if we are doing a completely different line of business, that they're still useful to the company, that they're able to do it. And that's the whole point of tech actually. Working inside Facebook, need to be able to adapt to completely different set of problems, different sets of constraints, different sets of issues. So let me contrast what an IT company does and what a product-based company does. IT companies usually service big clients, enterprise clients. These are companies which already have built a lot of their own systems. So a lot of the work that you have to do has to be with modifying those systems, writing new systems on top, of those old systems. Is yes, and you're servicing a client, and the client is king, and the client's requirements are king, and there are good reasons for it. But essentially, you need to learn and be very, very familiar with the systems a client uses, and you cannot leave those systems, and you need to execute within that extremely narrow systems. Let's say a product-based company where the end objective and getting a product out as quick as possible is sacrosanct. So you want to get a product out as quick as possible, and all the tools that you can use, you can choose from anything. You can choose from choose the best of this, the best of that, put it together and get it out. If you look at it, for the last 5 to 10 years, what we've been doing is we are in the age of apps. So instead of using the most products that are developed today are developed with an app first philosophy or a mobile first philosophy, which means that your number one objective is to get a really good mobile app out, and for that the technology stack would involve, of course, Android, iOS coding. And if you don't want to do that, there are certain things which allow you to ship apps to both platforms, like React Native, right? So those are the end goals, and then when you work back from that, then your server technology, for example, would be something like Ruby, Node.js or Python. And that would, again, the reason that these technologies are chosen again is that they're very, very fast to work with. Whereas established companies or big companies which have millions and billions of users, they would go with something like Java, which is more performant to achieve the same objectives. It's most important to get the fundamentals absolutely correct, so that when the new toolkit comes, you can just adapt to it. And actually, we haven't found a lot of difficulty changing languages or changing platforms or changing any of it. If anything, it's actually easier because these new toolkits are more adapted to the current problems of today, so they actually make it easier and faster to get things out. Startups are always challenging, and I would first I would always ask anybody who's thinking of doing a startup to get their heads examined. When it comes to a startup, the most important thing that we are worried about is speed, is agility, is velocity, so that we want to get a product out as quick as possible, to experiment to, and then to change it as we go along. There are always lots of constraints, right? You can fix any problem you have with money and time, but the thing about a startup is you neither have money nor time. One of the things which happens is, the glamorized world is, hey, I have this idea, I'm going to go to 10 VCs and they're going to put millions of dollars of funding behind me, and then all my problems are sorted out. So most people, they don't when they go try to raise funding, they figure out it's really, really difficult, that they're not raising funding. Sometimes you have good problems, like we certainly saw a huge number of transactions, 30x the number of transactions we see on a daily basis. We would suddenly have huge number of customer service and support which would come in, and we wouldn't know how to handle that. We don't have enough people, and you just can't hire somebody in 2 days to suddenly become a customer service person. We had written tools to make it to auto solve all the problems that customers are facing, like auto respond to it and make our support team, whatever it was, much more effective in answering questions. Essentially, when you get an engineer who joins for the first day and work in the US, they're far ready to deliver within a month. They're pretty much familiar with the tool chain. They've done lots of programming assignments within the job, so they know kind of how to execute on projects. In India, it's more about training because they haven't worked on this. They aren't ready to deliver on day one. So we have found a different solution, which is to hire interns and then make offers to our interns, so that they also get familiar. It's good for them because they understand how product companies work, and then we convert our interns into full time. Best people that we have hired and worked with are very enthusiastic about discovering the latest tools. They have an opinion on the latest tools. They teach us that this is a new tool and it's much better at delivering what we want than what is there, than what we're currently using. So it's not just, I don't think you can always blame the colleges, because the tool set is working, the tool set changes much faster rate than the colleges are ever going to adapt to. So we don't see a major reasons for colleges to get involved. They need to concentrate on the fundamentals. I mean, the things which don't change, like the mathematics of it and so on, so that they're ready for tomorrow. So what they're doing, they need to be getting people ready for tomorrow. But the best people are people who are actually enthusiastic about building products. When they hear about deep learning or anything, machine learning, they're out there, TensorFlow, any new thing that they've heard about, they're out there trying it out, checking out a new problem, and then testing it out and getting it out within 3 days. And we have worked with those people. They work with us. They're interns who do that. And there are other people who go by the book and not more interested. I will do whatever is necessary for the job. That may not be the best fit for a product company, because you're forever at the frontier trying to figure out what new things you can do. So it's a lot about self-motivation. It's all about how passionate you are about technology, about products, about building those products, about building really great products. So there are a lot of programming contests. There are a lot of programming contests where if you do well, big huge Silicon Valley companies will give you offers right then and there. So those are very, very lucrative, and there are good reasons for people to be on it. The only difficulty is even there is a site called Kaggle where you can submit machine learning problems, and there are always people who are looking to hire from sites like these, because these guys already are very good at the problem. So these kind of sites do exist. We've also found a lot of people who are forever trying to build their own app. They see a problem and they just go ahead and try to build an app to solve the problem, and it's like just for themselves. And those are the kind of people who are actually very good, and those are the kind of people that we try to hire. When we see that kind of passion, where you build something, like I like Sudoku, if I'm going to build a Sudoku game, doesn't matter if there are 100 other Sudoku games or Sudoku solvers or whatever there is, as long as they're passionate enough about it that they write an app to solve it, that shows the level of interest that they have. And as they get along to create an app, they realize how difficult it is. There may be tutorials and so on, but there are challenges which nobody can really prepare you for. The new liberal arts degree, which means that it's one degree which lets you do anything, and everything is technology driven. So the kind of fundamentals that they teach you are very, very useful. The mathematics they teach you is very useful for data analysis. Each and everything that they teach you is very, very useful in today's world. So you can do engineering and then end up doing something completely different just because of the fundamentals that they've taught you during engineering. The question is to keep innovating, to find out what exactly you want to do, work very hard at it, because there's no other way around it. A couple of years ago, funding had become the end, but funding is usually the means, not the end. So it had got to a point where all people were trying to do was raise a round of funding. Actually, the bubble's not burst. There are always going to be startups are meant to die, as the saying goes, in the sense that 90% of startups are going to face a lot of challenges, and if not dead, they're going to face a lot of difficulty to try to execute. So some startups shutting down is actually normal. It's painful, but it's normal. So that's not really the problem. As far as we have got to a place where after we have fewer players, they're very well funded, they have their fundamentals very, very straight. Our biggest challenge around, I think, 3 years from now is going to be that the new crop of companies which have been funded in the last 5 years, they need to have big exits, which means they need to go into IPOs and so on, and we'll see how that goes up. Then you're going to see them, that will again trigger a new round of huge startups which start. So these things are cyclical. They go through this up-down phase. Startup is more about, as you do it, the startup is more about the journey than the idea. As you start out with something, and then by the time you're 2 or 3 years down the line, you look back and you're in a completely different position. You're doing something completely different. Your original idea is no longer sacrosanct. You're now moved to a completely different market, and this keeps happening for lots of people. So it's all about the journey. It's about the passion. It's about ability to overcome a lot of adversity, because there's going to be a lot of adversity along the way. So startup is not just about the glamour. It's mostly about somebody who really wants to do something on their own, and then keep exploring, solving problems, and getting there.